Ladies, gentlemen, brothers, sisters, I am the greatest of the greatest. Next to Zack Snyder, next to Terrence Malick, next to Ryan Coogler, next to Edgar Wright, next to a host of others that I don't have enough time to mention. But I will mention these other two greats who are on the line with me, ladies and gentlemen. And one is a brother by the name of Fran, and another one is a good brother by the name of Jordan Ross. Jordan Ross, I'll start with you, brother, man. How have you been, man? It's been a good while.
I've been good. Surprisingly, I've been to the theater 4 times in the past 2 weeks, and that's been really nice.
Gotcha. And Fran, how you been doing, my brother?
I've been doing great.
Good.
I'm ready to speak some truths to these people.
Alright, Fran, and we're gonna get right into it, brothers. Brother Fran, I'll start with you. Are the critics being entirely too harsh on Dark Phoenix?
100%. Like, if you see the criticism of, you shouldn't really take on count Rotten Tomatoes, but what critics are saying there is so lame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even understand how those people call themselves critics. Like, it's like a 5-year-old could write those reviews. Things like, it is so good that it is finished because now Disney can make it the best it's ever been, or something. Things like that. Like, yo, review the fucking movie.
There you go.
Don't talk about those fucking things. And people say it was boring and I didn't understand anything. And you see those same reviews in movies like Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Mm-hmm.
And the reviews were like, I don't understand a fucking shit, but I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. It's like, I don't want to think wrong. I hope these people are not getting paid or something, but...
It's too many times, bro.
There's something strange there. Like, everything that is not Disney related always gets so much hate. That is... there has to be something strange there.
Yeah.
I saw the fucking movie on opening day, and it's not a fucking 20% it is right now.
22.
Like, it may be like a 6. It's not a masterpiece. It's nothing out of this world, but it's a great movie. You have a nice time in the theater, and that's it. I don't know what they were expecting, like the 7th coming of God or something. I don't know.
Yeah, bro, and I'm gonna rant a little bit later on, but it's funny you mentioned Disney, bro, because I was so mad leaving the theater. I was just like, man, it's really fascinating. If this movie had an MCU stamp on it, or Kevin Feige's name attached to it, or anything remotely resembling the MCU attached to it, I guarantee you this movie would not have below a 70-something on RT, or a 7 in most of these people's eyes. But with that being said, Brother Jordan, do you think the critics are being entirely too harsh on Dark Phoenix?
I think so, yeah. I totally agree with you guys. The movie isn't perfect, but it's far, far from a mess. It's, when I saw it the first time, I was a little taken aback because I think I was expecting something else, but when I saw it again yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised again. I was like, wow, I'm actually really enjoying this. This is good stuff here. Like, it's a really fun and great movie, and I guess we know why the critics are giving it a hard time because it's not Disney, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's funny when you mention the MCU, that all I could think about during that final train battle was the fact that all those soldiers had MCU written all over their clothes. I wonder if that was intentional.
It probably. Alright, brothers, we're gonna move on. Brother Jordan, let me ask you this, because you and I did a video a few months back going in on the X-Men films. What separates Dark Phoenix from other Marvel movies, in your opinion?
Something that I think we've talked about before is the tone and the, how to say it? The serious take on the characters, because had this been another movie, I can envision scenes within Dark Phoenix where maybe the MCU would have put in a couple jokes here and there, it's the kind of movie that someone like my mom would not like, and she loves all the Marvel movies, but she goes because she likes the jokes, she likes the humor, she likes how kind of bright and colorful it is. Whereas with this, she probably wouldn't enjoy as much because a lot more serious. It's a little bit darker, not as much quippy jokes.
Right.
Um, yeah, and the score, my goodness, the score was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've had anything like that from another MCU movie.
Right. Brother friend, what separates Dark Phoenix from other Marvel movies in your opinion?
Well, I think like most of what I think Jordan already said. So like it is true. Like it takes itself serious. You know, like maybe it's not as good as some other Marvel movies. That's alright. But what I really liked is that there weren't like 2 jokes every minute. There were like 2 jokes in the whole movie, and I really liked it because it's a personal preference, but I really prefer serious superhero movies. So the fact that a movie that was outside DC took itself seriously and had, you know, it has its problems, but in the MCU everything feels the same. The cinematography feels the same, the dialogue feels the same, the scripts feel the same. So it was nice to see a superhero movie that wasn't as conventional as the MCU is. Like the cinematography was gorgeous. The score, like the score when they first go to space, that score was really.
It was
good.
epic. Holy shit!
Like it felt different. That's what I like about it. It felt different because if you take like all the MCU movies, you can feel that if they were all directed by the same directors, shot by the same director of photography, and written by Kevin Feige, like every single one of them feels the same. And that Phoenix, it has its problems, but at least it is different.
Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't campy and fucking, again, like y'all both said, jokes every 30 seconds, but y'all know how I feel about that by now. Moving on, brothers, let me ask you this. Fran, I'll start with you. Did the movie do a good job at making the film about solely about Jean? Because watching the movie, I felt like it was a character study, and I know both of you brothers are very much anticipating a film coming out later this year called Joker, which will star Joaquin Phoenix. And I was thinking about that movie from time to time, and I thought the movie got a damn good performance out of Sophie Turner, who I've been very hard on in the past, no pun intended when I said hard on, but hard on in terms of her acting on Game of Thrones. But that's a whole nother video. But like I said, friend, do you think the movie did a good job at making the movie about Jean?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like the movie felt like it was telling Jean's point of view of the whole situation, but it lacked some more character moments. Like when I left the cinema, I felt like everything was a little bit rushed. Like I needed more interactions, more like, and like I needed to see more inside problems that she has. Like why does she enjoy hurting other people and why she doesn't, and things like that. Like there were some things like, you know, that she leaves and she wants to be alone and she discovers everything with his father and everything. But the thing is that it lacked some more profundity. Like even when she kills Mystique, I wasn't like really sad or emotional or anything. Like I was like, oh, she got killed. That's it. You know. And she was supposed to be like really upset because she doesn't want to be doing that, and only happens certain times. So it is not that it's her personality and everything. So I mean, I really appreciate that it was her point of view, but I in my opinion, it lacked some character development.
Okay. Brother Jordan, do you think the movie did a good job at making the film solely about Jean?
I think so. It's a little, for me, for the first time watching it, it was a little unclear who the main character was, but rewatching it, you realize it opens with the narration from Jean.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with Jean's childhood. It ends with the narration from Jean. And it's pretty clear that it's Jean's movie. And I've heard rumors, or I guess, quote-unquote, kind of inside information that this movie was changed quite a bit.
Right.
From pre-production to shooting, and then again from the initial shooting to the reshoots and all that. So I'm kind of keeping in mind that a lot was changed during the movie, and it is noticeable at some points. Like Fran said, there's some rushed parts. There's some rushed character beats.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything is there. It doesn't feel like everything is totally there. But I'm surprised at how cohesive the overall movie is.
Mm-hmm.
When you keep in mind that how much it was changed. But it's not all of any problems I have with the movie. I feel like it's nothing too big, and it's nothing that maybe another added 15 or 20 minutes couldn't satisfy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Jean worked really well. She's got a nice little arc of her at the beginning having a family,
Mm-hmm.
finding out that she was spoilers, that she was the reason for her mom's death, and then her going from, oh, I guess family doesn't care about you if you do something bad, and then her coming to realize that no, real family doesn't care if you do anything bad, they love you, and she gets her family back. I think that's a nice, beautiful little arc that she goes through the movie. So yeah, it worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the acting is fantastic from Sophie Turner.
Absolutely. And I like that, people have in the past said that the movies don't focus enough on the X-Men. I disagree with that, especially watching Dark Phoenix. I think while the movie focused a lot on Jean, that was the thing that kind of, it tore them apart, and then in the end, it brought all of them together, regardless of what differences they may have had, whether they were on, Magneto's side, extreme shout out to the brother Michael Fassbender, or whether they were on, the good side, Charles Xavier. That's what initially tore them apart, and then it brought them back together for what I consider one of the best action sequences in recent memory in a Marvel movie. But I'm not being salty. Now let me ask y'all this. Brother Jordan, I'll start with you. Does Dark Phoenix best serve as a conclusion to the First Class trilogy, or the entire I'm losing my voice, X-Men movie franchise? Because having seen every single one, the good and the okay to the bad, there are people out there that consider Logan or Days of Future Past the quote-unquote fitting conclusion to the X-Men trilogy. I can see that to some degree. However, I look at Dark Phoenix as just another chapter in the X-Men movie franchise, and that's something else that I like. I think it was either Matthew Vaughn or Rob Liefeld or somebody that said that each of the movies feel distinct, and I very much agree with that. They all feel distinct, whether or not they're good, great, or fucking garbage like Barakapool Origins. They all feel distinct. Now, Brother Jordan, I'll start with you. What do you think about Dark Phoenix serving as a conclusion either to the First Class trilogy or the entire X-Men franchise?
I think that the movie... Well, here's the thing. It wasn't supposed to be the conclusion, right? Because we were supposed to get
another
two movies. This was supposed to be a two-parter.
Mm-hmm.
So it really was not supposed to be a conclusion. And I think trying to, I guess, think about it as a conclusion is the wrong way about going about seeing this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think that it works better standalone. Kind of like Deadpool works in its own weird thing. Kind of like how the first X-Men or the second Wolverine movie where he goes to Japan. Those movies all kind of work together. I mean, they don't work together, but on their own, they all seem like their own kind of self-contained story. And I think that's how Dark Phoenix works.
Mm-hmm.
For me, anyways. That's how it's viewed best. and I'd be really curious to see someone's reaction to this movie who has never seen a X-Men movie before, because I think that might be the best way to see it.
Hmm. Okay, Brother Fran, do you think Dark Phoenix best serves as a conclusion to the First Class trilogy or the entire X-Men movie franchise?
Well, I agree a lot with what Jordan said. Like, it, I really didn't feel like it was connected to the last films. Like, I don't know why I've seen them all from the First Class to the Dark Phoenix, and it felt like a standalone movie. Like, it felt like a different story that really didn't tie in from the past. And I must say that probably there were like supposed to be two movies, and that would have been like much better than what we've got. But I would have loved that the X-Men franchise ended with Logan. Like, it would have ended in such a high note with a huge farewell to its best character in all the movies. And I don't know, maybe Fox was like, maybe we can stretch it a little bit and get more money, and now the movie has bombed. So, I don't know. I think that it felt like a standalone movie, but if they were going to do that it wasn't that tied in with the last movies, they should have ended in Logan. Because Logan like followed like the two continuities, I think, and that would have been like the highest note possible to end a brilliant franchise. Because right now people are gonna make fun of it and saying, oh, this last movie is garbage, and Apocalypse was garbage, and now in the MCU they're gonna be fucking amazing, and but I don't know. I don't really know what they did with it. I know that the reshoots and everything, they reshot like the entire third act, and I would like to see the original, but I don't know. I think it felt disconnected to the original First Class and those movies.
Okay. Now this is my favorite part, and I'll start out by saying, obviously, brothers, if this movie had an MCU stamp or Kevin Feige's name attached to it, you all know that this movie will be praised to the high heavens. People will be saying, oh, you see, I told you we do dark movies. Ooh, I told you that we don't do jokes every 30 seconds. Michael Fassbender is Kevin Feige's greatest find, etc., etc. Now, I'm not going to continue. I'm going to give you both a chance to elaborate further. That being said, why do you feel that fans and critics are being what I consider to be overtly hard on Dark Phoenix? Brother Fran, I'll start with you.
Well, I think that they are mostly scared. Like, I really think that they are scared that people will start to comprehend and like different movies that don't have the quote-unquote Marvel formula. I don't know why they are so proud of it. If you like cinema overall, you shouldn't be proud of making 22 movies that they all feel the same, but whatever. But the thing is that I think they are scared. Like, I think that they see that maybe another market may open, and that they may start to lose, followers and fans. Like, oh, maybe these, X-Men movies are great. Maybe I'm not that much of a fan of the MCU now. So I think that they are mostly scared, and they know what is coming. Like, they know that Disney is buying the rights, or they already bought them. So I think that they don't want to, they don't want to poke the beast in the nose. They don't want to make Disney angry, and they later don't get invited to press screenings and early screenings, because we know about it. Like, we know that critics are sympathetic to some studios because they get early access to movies and things like that.
Right.
So I think that they are not fucking stupid, and if they know that Disney is going to reboot the franchise, they are going to go hard on it. Like, oh, this is the shit because this movie is so shit and this franchise is dead. And when the X-Men come in the MCU, they will be like, oh my god, this is the best possible beginning for the X-Men and this and that. we are not stupid. Like, we are not kids anymore. We know how the world works.
Yeah.
We know that if you are fancy to a certain company, that company is going to be fancy to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how things work, but it's just straight up sad.
It is, bro.
Like, you can't call yourself like a movie critic because if you are a movie critic, that means that you enjoy cinema. That cinema is an important part of your life because you're spending time on it. And now, because everything doesn't follow a certain formula, it's trash. It's straight up sad. Like, I don't have another adjective. It's sad that you have to feel like all the movies are the same just to get a pat in the back and say, yeah, well done, little buddy. Now you are going to get an early screening for Captain Marvel 2. It's just sad. That's what I mean.
Yeah, it is, bro. It really is. It really is. And it's strange, man. Like, I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and he said something that, you know, I knew all along. I just didn't want to accept it. He said that Dark Phoenix never stood a fair chance as soon as the Disney, which is something I've known, as soon as the Disney Fox rumors became real, sadly, it never really stood a chance. I mean, now you see people clowning Days of Future Past. I saw one, as you like to call them, friend, specimen, talking about Logan works best if you pretend it doesn't exist within the X-Men movie franchise. Like, how does that even make any sense? But, Brother Jordan, I'm going to move on to you before I get started. Why do you feel fans and critics are being so hard on Dark Phoenix? Overtly.
It's sad. It's really sad because X-Men and Blade started this whole superhero.
Yeah.
This golden age of superheroes that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, I mean, I say golden age, but, like, is it really the golden age if it's just Disney?
Not anymore.
I mean, I think there's a few things going on. I think Fran touched on it beautifully. I think,
Yep.
you know, it's very obvious that Disney rewards certain critics for being a little more positive to their movies, which is, you know, their business. That's what they're about. That's not too hard to imagine. We all know they do it. We all saw the whole thing with Collider in the Star Wars Galaxy Edge thing. So I think nothing more needs to be said on that. I think it's also the expectation of Dark Phoenix, putting a little bit this more on Fox, because again, this is supposed to be a two-parter. It was supposed to be big and epic, kind of a big kind of final conclusion for the X-Men franchise. And so from what I've heard is 2 months before production started, Fox axed the budget a whole bunch and they changed it. So the movie turned out to be something different. I'm not going to say that is better or worse. I quite liked how it turned out, but it's definitely not a big, epic, huge conclusion to the franchise. So if you go in expecting a straight adaptation of Dark Phoenix, or you go in expecting this to be a final conclusion in the series, you probably will leave disappointed. I think that was what the final trailer for this movie was. It was like this big recap of all the X-Men movies, which I don't think that was probably the best choice, but I can see why they do that. Why they did that, because of, you know, Endgame being a big conclusion. And there's also the whole, you know, when you bring the Disney thing, with Disney acquiring the X-Men properties, like Fran said, people are they're kind of preemptively saying, oh, you know, they're kind of saying, oh, now this is where the X-Men should have been. Now it will be good. So when you do all that much negative talk, if you go into a movie, you know, wanting to hate it, you're going to hate it.
Yep.
But if you go into a movie with an optimistic, you know, mind, or with, you know, kind of being like, hey, I'm going to have a great time, you're going to enjoy it a lot more. So I think there's a lot of just negative discourse about the movie, which is also really kind of, you know, that's not too fun. And I mean, yeah, I think a lot of problem with film criticism today, not just, you know, I mean, with particularly with blockbusters, all sorts of blockbusters, not just Dark Phoenix, is it's all they're not the people giving these reviews, the verified users on Twitter's, all these people. It's not like they all have master degrees in in filmmaking. You know, it's not actually criticism. It's a film review. There's a difference. You know, there's a review where you're just giving your opinion, and then there's a criticism where you're kind of talking about what worked, what didn't work, how to improve it, and then there's a film analysis, which is talking about, okay, this is what the movie is trying to do, this is how you should read it. And a lot of these film reviews are mistaken for film criticism, and these reviews don't offer anything of substance other than someone's opinion. Which, why should you care about someone's opinion? Just go and inform your own, you know.
There you go.
So it's not actually criticism, because they don't actually talk about what works, what doesn't work, how to improve it. They talk about what doesn't work and what doesn't work, and I hate it because of this, and that's not helpful to the filmmaker. And these are just a lot of these verified people. They're just regular dudes who started out on YouTube, got really popular, and now they're verified users.
Yeah.
They didn't go to school to study this, and I'm not saying you need to go to school to make good film criticism, but they started out because they just talked about movies like a regular Joe, and that was appeal, and they're still doing that, and they haven't elevated their own personal work of what they do. They don't try to strive to make better criticisms or make better work. Instead, they just put everything down, which is that's super negative, and it's not great. And again, I'm not saying that you have to go to film school to be talk about film criticism or analyze a movie, but there's a point where it's just all just negative, and it's all negative talk, and it's just your opinion, and at that point, who cares?
Exactly.
And again, there are real critics out there who did go to school for journalism and film theory and all that, and those people have been negative, and I'm not saying that it's all like that, but I think the majority of people at big YouTube channels like, Collider, channels like that, it's just, that's mostly what it is, just normal people with their opinions.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, and you touched on something that I really like, that you said that when you go to a movie and you have like a predisposition to hate it, you're gonna hate it. And what I mean is like, that should work with regular people, with people like you and I, or yours. Like, if you don't like a certain actor or a certain studio or something, you can go with a negative predisposition, and it's alright. Like, we're just average moviegoers. Our job is not related to this, but these people, the film critics, that they have this predisposition to go and hate a movie that they haven't even seen. That's what it is scary and sad. Like, you are going to influence a lot of people around the world, and it is your job to try to be objective and see what worked in the movie and what didn't work. And the fact that these so-called movie critics go and with a negative predisposition to these movies, it is scary, like, straight up, because they can manipulate everyone and studios with their own opinion. And you also said these things like, you don't need to study film school and everything. That's fucking true, but these people, when you see the reviews and you click like, oh, this guy is called, I don't know, whatever name, and you click on it, and it's a blogger. Like, it's a guy that has a blog and writes in it. And that guy who hasn't studied cinema in his life, who doesn't know more cinema than any of us, is going to tell us why a movie works or it doesn't work. Like, I think that it is a broken system. Like, people with no film knowledge are giving you opinions based on their personal opinions, with no background, no They didn't study shit. They just see a movie and they're like, I didn't like it. And some people were like in Rotten Tomatoes, saying, this is not a great conclusion to the X-Men franchise. And it's like, okay, but it is a film. Talk to me about the film. What did you think of the score? What did you think of the cinematography? What did you think of the script?
Yeah.
What did you performances? Like every single critic was not like, well, the cinematography was great and the score too, but the dialogue lacked, I don't know, profundity. And you're like, okay, that's a valid criticism. But if your criticism is like, this is not a good farewell to the X-Men, that's like, okay, that's your opinion, but talk to me about the movie. Not a single one of them talk about the movie. I don't know. I hate Rotten Tomatoes, man. I really do.
Damn.
Mini rant, sorry.
I didn't mean to get y'all started, but y'all killed it. Moving on, bro. moving on, bro. Moving on, brothers. Let me ask you this, and Fran, I'll start with you. Which moving away from the goofy quote unquote critics, which fight scene stood out the most to you in Dark Phoenix?
Well, I must say that the ending battle was surprising because I knew that it was all reshot.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that when we DC fans hear about reshoots, like we get unsettled. We our stomach starts to hurt, and you're like, oh my god, not again, not again.
Yeah.
So when I heard the reshoots, I was like, yo, this is going to look so bad, like so bad. And I went and saw it, and I was like, I don't know what the space thing was about, but this train scene is not as bad as you would think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's great. Like, you could see each other using their powers and everything. So, for being a reshot, it felt really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fight scenes felt really good, and especially that one because of everything that was behind it. Like, they maybe had to do it in less time, and they had less time to do the visual effects and everything. I fucking really enjoyed it. Like, I think that it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not, some like BVS kind of fight level, but I think that it's better than a lot of fight scenes from the MCU, for example.
Yep.
Like, I really enjoyed it.
Yep. Yeah. The only fight scene in the MCU, yes, I'm being salty. The only fight scenes in the MCU that I really can think off of the top of my head, obviously, most every one of them in the Winter Soldier. T'Challa versus Eric without the armor in Black Panther. And maybe Iron Man versus Thanos in Infinity War. Other than that, that's it. Brother Jordan Ross, what was your favorite fight sequence in Dark Phoenix? Which one stood out to you the most?
Dude, I totally agree with Fran. It's when I saw the train sequence, everybody knew that the ending was reshot. I'm like, oh no, here it comes.
Mm-hmm.
And if no one knew that the ending was reshot, you wouldn't be able to tell at all, because that was a kick-ass fight sequence. And I found out why, because the team from Mad Max Fury Road, they were part of the stunt people who were in charge of designing it.
Oh wow!
And they knocked it out of the park.
Yes.
The way, there's just the kinetic energy of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it's not like this big kind of, I don't know what you call it. We're so accustomed now these days to having a big team shot and having a team shot of the whole characters, and they kind of all work together fighting, and it's all kind of very, they aim for kind of very comic book accurate type imagery.
Mm-hmm.
But in this, it kind of goes back to that original X-Men, where it's just people, real people just fighting. They just happen to have powers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in street clothes. They're not in any X-Men uniforms, which I thought was a kind of really nice change. It felt very ground level, very just kind of dirty, kind of reminded me of Logan a lot. The way that they were able to use the powers in that sequence, like Kurt with his, teleporting all around people, just knifing them, Magneto just kind of flicking his hands left and right with all the metal flying around. I mean, I thought it was great. That final fight was fantastic, in my opinion.
Shout out to Storm as well. Speaking of Storm, bruh, we're about to get controversial again. And brother Fran, you and I have traded rounds on this subject in the past, and I kind of got an idea of how you might answer. But you know, I gotta ask you first. Uh, what are your thoughts on the quote unquote ex women line?
I'm not gonna go really off on this one, but like I saw the clip and I was like, okay. And I was in the cinema and I went to see it with a friend,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, yo, it is coming, it is coming. And we were like 5 people in the cinema, and I swear that the 5 of us, women included, did a common face palm. Like at the same time, it was like, why? Like, and she's like, right now women are saving all the time men, and you're like, yo, you just went to space, and the ones who saved them was the guy who can teleport and Quicksilver.
Nightcrawler, yeah.
You may like shut the fuck up a little bit, like relax. Like that's what I mean. Like I don't know why they try to impose like this woman power and everything. Like show me. The same criticism that I had with Endgame. Like show me why these female superheroes are powerful.
Yeah.
Don't tell. This is cinema. We don't care about words. We care about what you do, your actions.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see that, maybe Mystique does something and it happens to save everyone, I'm gonna go and clap about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're trying to sell me all the time this message, and when I see the movie, I don't see that kind of message, I'm like, what? Like, why? It's the same criticism as Endgame.
Yeah.
They try to get it in like, yeah, swallow it, Like, yeah, we are a progressive company and this and that. And it's like, yeah, you may be, but show me. Show me female superheroes saving people, being powerful, and everything. But they don't show it. They just, with words, we are all really free. Like, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But what matters are the actions.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to sell me a message and in the movie you don't pay off that message, then I'm gonna call you what you are, a hypocrite. That's it. Like, it wasn't that bad, but it was like, why? Why would you say that? I don't know. Create your own superhero group with only women and call it X-Women. What's the problem? There's no problem. The X-Men are called X-Men because they are called X-Men. If you want to make an X-Women, go make an X-Women. There's nothing wrong about it.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't know.
Brother Jordan, what are your thoughts on the ex-women line, brother?
Taken out of context, when you see the clip online, it's like, ugh, that's not a very well written line.
Mm-hmm.
But in the context of the movie, it's a kind of quick thing. And so for me, I mean, it was like, it didn't bother me more than like what it was. It was just a kind of poorly written line, and that was it. They got past it pretty quick.
That's true.
The whole movie isn't like, other superhero properties where they will kind of totally beat you over the head with, girl power,
Endgame. Sorry.
And it's not like Fox or like the people behind this movie were like saying, go see this movie to support women or anything, making a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it was a huge big deal. I mean, would I have written that line if I was there? Probably not. I probably would have tried something more like, I don't know, not that, but I probably wouldn't have written that. But I didn't think it was like a huge big deal. It was just kind of there's a couple of bad lines in the movie, but I don't know. It is what it is, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah,
what's hilarious is the fact that they give that line to Mystique, whose very power is she can change genders whenever she wants, and she can change, you know, she can turn into different people. So it's kind of funny that you give that line to the person who
Shapeshifts.
would be like the most gender fluid out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Would be so beyond the concept of boy and girl. You know, it's funny that they give it to Mystique, which is just kind of
The irony.
I thought that was kind of funny.
Fran, you said a little bit of something earlier. You got cut off. What were you trying to say, my brother? Sorry.
No, I said that line wasn't Captain Marvel level of bad. You know, like I agree with Jordan that they passed it really fast. They said it. That's it, and it's you can appreciate that. So I mean, overall, I don't like that line, but it is not Captain Marvel level of bad. You know.
Gotcha.
They go over it quickly. Captain Marvel is the whole fucking movie, but that's another video.
Now, brothers, we've reached a very exciting part of the video for myself. I mean, when I first saw First Class in 2011, I loved it, and a big part of that was due to James McAvoy and especially Michael Fassbender. I mean, I'm gonna try not to spend 30 minutes gushing and fanboying over them, but I simply don't think they could have picked anybody better to play Professor Charles Xavier or Eric Lyncher, aka Magneto, especially in regards to Magneto. I mean, Michael Fassbender, even in Apocalypse, which wasn't god awful but wasn't as good as it could have been, he to me carried that film on his back. And I really think the real reason why it's gonna take quote unquote a while for the Disney men, as I'm gonna be calling them from now on, to be a thing is because they're gonna have a very hard time finding somebody to fill the shoes of Professor X and Magneto as well as these two gentlemen did. With that all being said, Brother Jordan, I'll start with you. Will there ever be a duo greater than James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender?
Oh man, I don't think so. I mean, they were the perfect choice to kind of replace Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart. And both of them, but particularly Michael Fassbender, he just brings it in every damn movie he's in. Like, he gives it 110%. He is such a great and fantastic actor.
Yep.
And it's really hard. I don't know if I was Disney or if I was Kevin Feige right now. I don't really know what exactly I would do in terms of the cast for the MCU characters, because you can't replace people like Hugh Jackman or James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. You just can't replace those characters.
Right.
I mean, those actors. Those actors are so iconic in their own roles. So I don't know what I would do in terms of going forward. What I would hope, this would be my dream, is that the X-Men just remain separate in their own kind of little universe, but whenever the Avengers want to cross over, they do some kind of like multiverse kind of time jump kind of thing where they jump between different universes, and that's how they get to cross over. But the X-Men stay on their own thing. But I know that probably won't happen, but who knows?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how they're gonna do the casting going forward, but it's a real shame that if we lose McAvoy and Fassbender.
I completely agree. And as of right now, the only confirmed jump is going to be Ryan Reynolds, which he's been praising it since day one. To each his own. That's a whole nother video. Fran, what's your thought on James McAvoy and the often overlooked Michael Fassbender, man, as Charles Xavier and Magneto?
Well, I think that they both were fucking great over these last movies, and I really appreciate Michael Fassbender because, like what Jordan said, like in every fucking movie he's in, he gives it all. Like you can see that he's putting the effort to make it the best movie he can. So it's really, you can really appreciate it, and I don't think that they can be replaced because I don't know how they are going to explain that suddenly there's mutants in the MCU. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care about that really, but they may find really good actors, and they may find some. Some people said, Tom Hardy for Wolverine and things like that, and you're like, yeah, he's a fucking great actor, but nostalgia and seeing a character you love being played by the same guy for like 7 to 8 years, and Logan being played for like 20 years, it is going to be hard to move on. Like,
Very.
I personally, I try to be open-minded with new castings. With maybe Robert Pattinson as Batman, I'm really excited for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is going to be hard because those are big fucking shoes that they need to put on the next actors that are going to come in.
Yeah.
And I'm really going to miss them because Fassbender gave Magneto a really emotional and depth of character to the character that was fucking great. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that in the MCU they are not going to explore that
Nope.
because it's not family friendly. Yeah, kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see so many people saying that, oh, get Michael Fassbender as Doctor Doom. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure he'd be amazing as Doctor Doom, but why can't they just bring, Professor X and Magneto, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender? I don't know. I don't know, man. Now, Fran, I'm gonna start with you, man. We saw a lot of personal moments in Dark Phoenix, and that's another thing I really liked. Um, Jean has always pretty much from the start had a pretty close relationship with Charles. What did you think about the whole relationship with them in the movie and them kind of making Professor X the bad guy, so to speak?
Well, I mean, mostly what I enjoyed wasn't that much the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What I really enjoyed was how they touched on, trauma and how to deal with trauma and everything. I
Mm-hmm.
think that they didn't really go all in on it because that's not what the movie is about. But I really, really enjoyed how they dealt with, I tried to suppress her trauma, and that in the end made her go like even crazier than she could have been if she didn't. And in the end, they say those lines that like I was wrong, I suppressed it, and I shouldn't have done it because now it is worse. And she says like it's alright. I know that you did it to protect me, and I think that's a beautiful like character arc over the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And but what I said, like I enjoy mostly what they touch about repressing trauma and why you should deal with it and seek help and everything
Mm-hmm.
than the actual relationship between them. Because the actual relationship was like the typical at the beginning I'm mad at you and in the end we are friends again. But I really liked how they touched in those things. Like that's what I personally I'm going to miss. Like in these movies, you don't only see superheroes fighting. You see things like trauma, how some people deal with it, how some people try to help another with it. It
Mm-hmm.
is complex. It is human. There's emotions. People get things done wrong, and I'm 100% sure that we are not going to see anything of this in the MCU,
Nope.
which is fucking. But
Yeah, brother. Brother Jordan, what's your thought on Jean's relationship with Charles, and especially particularly in Dark Phoenix? Because I really liked a lot of the scenes that they had in the film. They've always had a pretty close relationship, and I just want to know your thoughts on it, brother.
I thought it was great. It all worked really well for me. They do some really interesting things with those two characters. And I was surprised that like how similar it was to The Last Stand in terms of like kind of what they go through.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt more complete here because the movie begins and ends with Jane and Charles. With Xavier, it's interesting because like they do kind of hint at that for Professor X. It's not enough that the X-Men and the mutants are accepted by the world.
Mm.
Now, every time that the humans want something done, the X-Men have to rush to save them. He has to constantly endanger the lives of his X-Men and mutants, which is kind of interesting, like a way to spin it, where it's like, oh, it's not enough that we're accepted. The humans expect us to fix them and save them and do all that stuff, which is really that's kind of a cool angle to put. And his whole thing of like, I need to control the X-Men. I need to have complete control. That's taking him from that to I can trust the X-Men at the very end, where he's like, no one else can come with me to save Jean, just me and Scott. And he trusts the X-Men, who are like, no, we're with this together. She's our family. We're our fam. We're gonna do this together as a family. That's
right.
kind of a nice little thing of him needing to control everyone, to him kind of trusting his family. And I said this before with Jean, but I think she goes through a beautiful kind of arc where, she discovers she's had this trauma and she hurt people, and the result of her killing her mom is her dad absolutely rejecting her and believing that she is a lost cause, as opposed to Professor X, where she's killed one of the X-Men, but even still, Professor X is like, no one's ever truly. It's never too late to save someone. I know your pain. I suffer with you, but we're going to get through this together. And her kind of finding that acceptance in her X-Men family, that's so beautiful. And I really wish, I wish we could have more with this, because I want to see where they're going. Because at the end of Dark Phoenix, she gets that acceptance from her family, but she has to give it up, and that's the whole that's her kind of tragic kind of ending, in a way, where she has to give up her family. She has to leave to save them.
Right.
Yeah, I really loved all the character beats with Jean and Charles. I think it all really worked.
Okay. Now, let me talk to y'all a bit about Magneto's, we'll call it sanctuary. I think the proper term is Genosha. Fran, I'll start with you. What did you think about that whole sequence with, Jean discovering, Magneto has this, what we consider a safe haven for, mutants. He's kind of still teeter-tottering between, doing good and going back to, being the evil Magneto, because initially he doesn't know that, about what happened to Mystique. What was your thought on that whole, sequence, and especially with them facing off with the helicopter and everything and the music? What did you think about all that, man?
Well, I really expected it to be like more profound, maybe. Like, I wanted to see like Phoenix explaining why she when these episodes happen, why she enjoys hurting people and everything. And Magneto used to hurt a lot of people in the past, so I would have loved to see Magneto talking about her, like, yeah, it really felt good, and you can do whatever you want and everything. I understand that maybe he's a changed man, but I think that it was a fucking great opportunity to see him, like, not advising her to, start killing innocent people, but, trying to tempt her. Like, when I did it, I felt powerful and it felt good and things like that. And they instead spend a lot of lines like, who's that blood? From who's that blood from? And it's like, okay, yeah, we got it. And I really enjoyed, like, the little battle that they have with the helicopter. Like, you see Magneto giving fucking everything, and she's like with one hand, like, I can destroy it if I fucking want. So I think that scene was really, really good, but in my opinion, it lacked some. I wanted Magneto to, basically.
Gotcha. Brother Jordan, what did you think about Magneto's sanctuary / safe haven for, brothers and sisters like that are mutants?
I thought it was great, and it's kind of a nice little. I mean, I know Genosha's I think that's in the comic books, and I always love it because it's like this great little reference to kind of Magneto's Jewish heritage. Because it's like a reference to the Promised Land, Egypt and in the desert and all that, which I think is a fun little kind of nod to his Jewish heritage. So to see him kind of come full circle from the boy in Auschwitz to the guy who's in charge of this mutant sanctuary, I think that's great. The scenes, I thought those worked well for me. All of his motivations, all of his lines, they lined up, they made sense to me. He's like, I can help you, but you just gotta tell me what's going on. He's not he doesn't, he's kind of giving her the tough love kind of treatment, I would say. He's like, listen, I'll help you, but, you stop bullshitting me. Let's figure this out. Then when the people come, the military come, he's like, dude, we got a right to be here. You can't mess with us. And I think that's a great little thing to, add, even though the humans and the government gave the mutants this land, it doesn't mean that they're ever truly, it doesn't mean that they really have the rights of citizens. That's just a great little nuance to add, which I think is very true in our world. Just because there's laws, that supposedly protect minorities, it doesn't mean that minorities really are treated with
fairly
respect and rights. I think that's a great little nod to that.
Yep.
And I love, and his reaction makes sense. His purpose in the movie is to be the person that Jean turns to after she thinks the X-Men have turned away from her. That's his purpose. And when he turns her away because she's too powerful and she's going to mess up his promised land, he's like, I've worked so hard for this. I'm not going to give this up for anybody, not even you. When he turns her away, she needs to be to that point where she has no one to turn to. That's why she turns to Jessica Chastain's character. So, it all worked for me. That was great.
Gotcha. And it's so crazy. I don't want to get you guys' thoughts on this. It's so crazy. I see people saying, well, I don't understand why they jumped from Apocalypse to Dark Phoenix because we haven't had enough time with Sophie Turner as Jean Grey. Fran, I'll start with you because I instantly think of Thor, but I'm not gonna get started. Fran, what's your thought on the complaint that they shouldn't have jumped from Apocalypse to Dark Phoenix?
Well, there may have been a better way to continue the series, but they did what I did, and I think that in its own universe it really worked well. I don't see the fucking problem in Apocalypse. You see how her powers are starting to grow, and she's the one that fucking defeats the most powerful mutant on Earth.
Right.
So I think that was a really good setup to the next movie. I don't understand the complaints really. If in the last movie she's the most powerful one and she is the one who kills the villain, why not show in the next film that those powers she has, she can really control?
Right.
I think that's a clever way of moving forward the franchise. I don't really know what people expected from it. They went with it in that direction, and I think that was great. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they could have gone in a totally different direction and it would have been the best X-Men movie ever, but I think that it was clever and it was common sense to follow with what that Phoenix did in Apocalypse to the conflicts and problems that could bring to the team and to the world in the next film. I think that's totally possible and totally clever.
Okay. Brother Jordan, what are your thoughts on people complaining that it was too soon for Dark Phoenix, but yet we can jump from Thor: The Dark World to Thor: Ragnarok with little explanation? But go ahead, Brother Jordan.
I don't think it's ever too soon to do a movie or not. You know what I mean? Unless that's something like Lord of the Rings, where it's if they tried to do Return of the King first, that makes no sense, obviously, because that's the end of the story. But the first X-Men introduced us to so many characters without any setup.
Yeah.
The argument that it's ever too soon to make a movie, I don't know. I don't think that's really a valid thing. I get it. You maybe you wanted to see more of them. I guess I could understand that, wanting to see more of Sophie Turner as Jean Grey. I could understand that, but I thought they really made it focused on her. They made it about her journey,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't need to know what she did 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or you know, what her and Scott do every night, or what her and Storm do every Sunday or whatever. We don't need to see that. We just need to see. I mean, when we see the character, I mean, go through all that, the Dark Phoenix stuff, and we see her suffer and we see her fear, we empathize with her, and I think that's enough for me. So I don't.
All right, Fran, let me start with you. And we kind of touched about this earlier. Uh, what to you was the best part about Dark Phoenix as a movie overall?
I mean, probably the score and the cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
Like the score was really good. Like in the rest of the film, you didn't just step out. But in the first scene when they go to space to check those astronauts,
Mm-hmm.
that score was really really good.
It was.
Like it kind of remembered me to Interstellar, Hans Zimmer, and the cinematography was great. Like the use of colors, the use of black and everything. You can see like the powers and the electricity and everything really pop out. So that's what I really most enjoyed, because there were some gorgeous shots in there.
Yeah.
Like if you compare that to the cement airport scene from a certain MCU movie,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, at least they tried to give us something different. At least there are some remarkable shots, because in certain other franchise, there's only 3 or 4 shots that are worth it. At least in this movie, they tried to make contrast and everything.
Gotcha.
The score was really, really good. I mean, what can you expect from Hans Zimmer? It's fucking great.
Yeah, he's a legend. Brother Jordan, what was the best part about Dark Phoenix overall for you?
Man, yeah, the score was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I've had like just that opening track stuck in my head for like ever since Thursday, so I've just been replaying it on Spotify ever
Mm-hmm.
since. Score is awesome. The acting's really good. The
Mm-hmm.
action's all really good. The VFX looked gorgeous. Story was simple, but it was personal and effective. Um, I mean, just a really good movie, in my opinion. Anyways, yeah, just really liked it.
Gotcha. Which performances stood out to you guys the most? And Brother Jordan, I'll start with you. For me, it was definitely, obviously, Sophie Turner. Fantastic job, in my opinion. Obviously, McAvoy and Fassbender brought it, but even Nicholas Holt and I think her name is Alexandra Shipp that plays Storm. She was really good as well. Brother Jordan, I'll start with you. Which performances stood out to you?
Totally agree with Sophie Turner, Fassbender, um, James McAvoy. All they're all great as usual.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought up Nicholas Holt, because that was for me what really sold Jennifer Lawrence's death with Raven.
Mm-hmm.
He just brought it to that scene. So I really bought that. I bought the effect of Raven's death, um, all due to Nicholas Holt's performance. So he was really great, and I'd imagine that's super hard, under all that heavy cosmetics and stuff. But yeah, he was great.
Got you, Brother Friend. Which performances stood out in Dark Phoenix to you most?
Well, I mean, Michael Fassbender,
Mm-hmm.
like what I said earlier, he always brings everything he had, and I really, really appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say that Sophie Turner really, she wasn't bad. Like she carried the movie as a protagonist, and that's great. But I really expected a little bit more, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was great, right? And she didn't make the movie go down on anything. But she was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she was good, but there was a little bit more that I felt that was needed. Because when you see like Fassbender, who gives everything he has, like fucking everything, and McAvoy also had like some scenes where he was like, why are you turning like your acting skills down because for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
There was some scenes that I was like, okay, why is nobody trying? But overall, it was okay, and there were some exceptions with your what you're talk about with Beast when Mystique is killed. I think that he really sold it. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
But I would only ask a little bit more of Sophie Turner and James McAvoy. The
Okay.
rest of them were really good.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned James McAvoy because even in the trailers, I felt like he was really trying to. With this, I don't know if it was with this being the last movie or this was just something he wanted to do. I felt like he was really trying to emulate Patrick Stewart, his voice and his stature in this one. Brother Jordan, what's your thought on that?
Um, you know, it's funny because like the first X-Men movie is like takes place in 2000 or 2001, and this movie's only 7 years away from that.
Right.
So you would think they would have added more prosthetics for like old man makeup,
Mm-hmm.
or tried to make him look a lot more like Patrick Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of a funny continuity thing for me because it's like, oh, I guess those 7 years were like super rough on Professor X and Magneto. But yeah, I mean, I think by this point, I think McAvoy kind of has his own kind of way of portraying Xavier. I think it's a lot easier to suspend that disbelief, or at least see kind of how him and Patrick Stewart are the same person in like the earlier X-Men movies. But just the fact that this takes place in the 90s is kind of like, it's just kind of funny that like
they look so young.
7 years he's gonna look like Patrick Stewart. Which I mean, this is a movie where people can fly, they control the weather. People have knives for hands. Like I can suspend my disbelief that they're that they age differently. That's not a huge deal. But yeah, I mean James McAvoy. I think he's really defined the role in his own right. Where he's Professor X is maybe a little bit more relatable, a little bit more nuanced maybe than Patrick Stewart, because Patrick Stewart always fulfilled that role of like the kind of wise old man mentor kind of figure, whereas Professor X by James McAvoy, we've seen him from a 20-year-old man to I guess supposedly 65 or 50 years old. I can't remember, so I don't know. He feels like his own character at this point, and that's not a bad thing in terms of like the overall universe. I think his performance is really well done.
Gotcha. Brothers, let's talk about Jessica Chastain's character, Vuk, who is apparently the leader or one of the people that is Dabari. I believe I'm saying that right. Brother Fran, I'll start with you, man. What did you think about the Dabari and Vuk played by Jessica Chastain? I thought Jessica Chastain did fine, especially when she kind of, morphed into these quote-unquote Dabari, which I think at the time they were initially going to be the Skrulls, but due to Captain Marvel or another Marvel movie, which most agree that it was Captain Marvel, having similarities, they changed the whole landscape and name and all that, but we know they're shape-shifting aliens. What did you think about Jessica Chastain's performance and character?
I think that it was one of the worst things about the movie. Like it felt so flat. Like when you saw the movie, you're like, so who's the villain again? Like I know that she's supposed to be playing like this alien from this burial race and everything, but she's like so flat in emotions all the time that you even forget she's in a movie. I know it may not be her problem because that's her character and that's what she's supposed to do. But it's so forgettable. In my opinion, it's really bad. I don't know whose decision was to make her an emotionless alien, but it wasn't a really good decision. Because you can have the best actor or actress in the world, but if you give them that kind of paper to do, it's going to be forgettable and make the movie worse. Because if they had a good villain that you could empathize with or something like that, it would have elevated the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, yeah, this alien race from we don't know where is like in extinction. We don't know why they are in extinction. So they actually find this energetic cosmic thing that they can use to remodel their planet. Is like, okay, but you never get to connect with them. And the fact that the leader is, an alien with no emotions doesn't help to make it a good villain. That's it. Like, I don't have anything against the actress. That is good in other papers, but this wasn't really, really good.
Gotcha. Brother Jordan, what did you think about Jessica Chastain's Buck and the Dabari?
Um, this is one of those things. I think the reshoots and the changing from the two-parter script to just the one movie, I think they really affected it. Because from everything that I've heard, she plays Leandra, who in the books, I think she's a Shi'ar empress.
Right.
So going into it, that's what they thought they were doing, and of course, they had to change it because so many things changed during it. And just a little side note about all the reshoots. Fox wanted to keep the date of like the February release. They wanted to keep that date, but Kim Berg eventually was like, "Dude, the effects aren't going to be done. We need those extra months to finish the effects." And they finally gave it to him, and I'm so glad they did that because can you imagine if this movie had terrible effects and had like Justice League like level quality? That would have just been terrible.
Right.
Anyways. Yeah, so her character, I mean, yeah, I agree with Fran. She's not totally interesting. And she definitely would have been way more interesting in the kind of two-parter, kind of more traditional Dark Phoenix adaptation. But, when you think about Logan, that's one of the best movies in the X-Men universe. The villains in that weren't particularly interesting or, like, notable. They were just there to kind of drive the plot forward and make things more difficult for the heroes. So she kind of served the same purpose that I think is Donald Pierce and forgetting his name. That those two guys in Logan, she kind of serves the same purpose that they did. They're just there to kind of drive the plot forward a little bit, make things more difficult for the heroes. Because what we really care about is Jean Grey, and the X-Men. That's what we're really focused on. So, she wasn't a strong villain, but, she served the plot well, I guess. That's what I would say.
Gotcha. Finally, brothers, let's talk about Jennifer Lawrence and Mystique. Now, Brother Jordan, I'll start with you. Mystique has repeatedly been bashed throughout the First Class trilogy. A lot of people have said Jennifer Lawrence doesn't want to be there. Why doesn't she wear her makeup enough? She's stiff. She looks disinterested. And I'll admit, I only have really, really enjoyed Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique in Days of Future Past. I believe me and you discussed this in the video, Brother Jordan. What's your overall thought on Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique before we close?
I have to bring up this meme I saw. It was a picture of Rebecca Romijn as Mystique, and then a picture of Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique from Dark Phoenix put together. And the caption was, "Rebecca Romijn did not rub her bare coochie across the floor in X-Men 2 for Jennifer Lawrence to disrespect her like this."
Dang.
And that's, whenever I hear about Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, that's the first thing I think of. We all kind of know that she signed on for 3 movies for First Class, when she was signed on. And at the time, she was not a big actress. Then she blew up and became an A-list star. So understandably, Fox was like, we got to keep her around because she's a big box office draw right now. And it was kind of noticeable in Apocalypse that she didn't want to be there. She wasn't wearing the makeup as much. And some of her performance wasn't as good as it was in the other 2 movies. But, she really surprised me in Dark Phoenix. I thought, you know, I thought the makeup actually looked kind of cool. Um, I like the colors and the kind of new design. I thought that worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Her delivery, I mean, her performance wasn't, she didn't have a standout performance in the movie, but it wasn't terrible. She gave a pretty good performance. Um, and I read that she was one of the reasons, or I mean, I guess Simon Kinberg was one of the reasons that she agreed to be in this movie, because she was like, I'll return for this movie if you direct it, Simon, because I guess she had a good relationship with him on the previous X-Men movies, and I think that shows. I think she definitely a better performance than in Apocalypse, um, and yeah, I thought in this movie it was pretty good.
Got you. Brother Fran, what is your overall thought on Jennifer Lawrence, aka Katniss Everdeen, as Mystique in the X-Men trilogy?
Well, I think that in the first movies you could really see that she was trying, like she was starting to blow up, and you could see that she was trying to do her best. But in Dark Phoenix, I don't know, it felt really flat. Like I know that it dies early in the film and everything, but I don't see anything that gives me a reason to care about it. You know, maybe because of the backstory of the last movies, and that's alright. But in in that Phoenix story, like even it takes the design, so you could be like her face, because I think that was something that she requested to see her face, because a actress and everything. But I don't know, I was a little bit disappointed, man. Like I wasn't really attached to her in any emotional way. When he died, it was like, okay, like he died. It wasn't anything out of this world in terms of emotion or acting. And I don't know. Maybe she was tired of the role. I don't really know. I don't obviously don't know what's going on her head, but I don't know. I think that it fell flat. It was an okay performance, and she in the last X-Men she was doing really great,
Mm-hmm.
and movie came out and it was like, okay, maybe she's doing for the paycheck. I don't know, but I felt like she was really trying, and when the people around her were really trying, it kind of stood up. It's alright. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but I think that she could have given a little bit more. Same as Sophie Turner, for example.
Okay, okay. Now, Brother Jordan and Brother Fran, we're about to close. I'll ask this final last question, and then we will definitely close. Brother Jordan, I'll start with you. Where does Dark Phoenix rank in your X-Men movies?
Damn it, that's like the most difficult question you could have asked. um, oh gosh, I feel like it's near the top
Mm-hmm.
for me. Because I feel like I'm slowly becoming obsessed with it, because I'm just thinking about more and more what I liked about it.
Same.
Well, that's got to be the sign of a great movie. Um, I mean, if like kind of the top tier one for me in terms of X-Men movies are Logan, Days of Future Past, and X2, I feel like Dark Phoenix would be not too far behind, like maybe a movie or two behind that, but probably in my top five, I would say.
Okay. Brother Fran, where would you rank Dark Phoenix in your X-Men films?
Well, I think it is like top five,
Mm-hmm.
but it's probably in the fourth of the fifth place. Like because the last stand and Logan. I mean, first one gonna be Logan always. Yeah, but it's going to be like third or fourth, and Days of Future Past is going to be second always.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think that it was quite better than some X-Men movies like Origins. That movie was bad, far worse than this one. And the Wolverine was kind of forgettable. So I don't know. I think that it is growing on me. That is happening with Jordan. I think that the movie is growing on me. I don't think it is that bad. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I put it in the top five. I should need to rewatch all the movies to give you a clear answer. But right now, I think it is top 5. It is not in any way as bad as Origins or the Wolverine, for example.
Got you. Yeah, I agree with both of you brothers. Mine would be in no particular order: Logan, X-Men First Class, X2, Days of Future Past, and Dark Phoenix. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we will end the video here. Fran, as always, it's been a pleasure, brother. Brother Jordan, as always, it's been a pleasure, brother. We got to do this more often and also get more brothers to collaborate so we can have this these chats loaded and ready to go. But we're going to close out. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave a link to Fran's channel in the description. And Brother Jordan, is it alright if I leave a link to your Twitter in the description?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the video. We'll see y'all next time. Take care. God bless. Goodbye.